Hello, I'm Li Hao. So today we're going to talk about a special element called Svelte component. So have you ever had this situation where you want to, based on the condition, use component A, but as a different condition you want to use component B, and at a certain condition you want to use component C. These A, B, C component are actually interchangeable. They're taking the same props, they're kind of taking the same have the same behavior, but you just want to use different components, different of them, for different situations. And how do you do that? Usually, let's take a look at an example. Usually what you would do is you would have an if statement and switch between them, right? So right now I have if statement. Based on the condition, I want to use foo, and sometimes I want to use bar. And actually, foo and bar can bind value, right? You can bind value to foo and bar, and so that foo and bar can handle them, right? Can they? Oh no, I haven't implemented. So let's do this. So let's have this, let's value, and foo will show an input type, number, and bind value. So foo will have its own input and bind a value. Bar will do almost the same thing as well. Yeah, except they show a different words. Okay. Of course there's better way of doing this, but let's assume that they looks almost the same, takes in almost the same props, and have almost the same behavior. Actually, this is exactly the same behavior. So let's try something else. Let's say a okay, I need to actually export let's value instead, so that it's a props. For bar, I am going to have buttons instead. On click, this is 200. Okay, on click value will be 200. Another button on click will be 400. Right, so bar has this button that you can click and change the value, and foo has this number that you can change, input text that you can change. So they both have the same props called value, and they work slightly differently internally. And when do you want to render foo or bar? Basically based on some other conditions, right? In this case, based on value, if it's 50, you will show foo, or else you will show bar. Okay, this is very contrived, but this is just going to show how this works, right? So when you come over here and you change this value to say 70, you will see foo, right? And foo can change this back to 0, and then you see bar. Bar can click to change to 200, then you see foo, right? Based on the condition, you want to switch between different components. So one way is, of course, use an if-else statements. Then you would have to implement, if you have a lot of props that you want to pass in, A equals something, B equals something, C equals to something. You have a lot of props that you want to pass into both of them, and both of the case are actually the same props that you want to pass them. Then you may start to question yourself, is there a way that I can extract all this out and switch between components? Well, if you don't have a bind value, then yes, there's of course some ways that you can do. Say for example, you can come up with a props object. So I can say A equals to A, B equals to B, C equals to C, and I can spread the props, right? I can spread the props. So I can kind of still keep them the same, try to reuse as many code as possible, but bind, you can't do that, right? If you have events like on click over here and on click over here, you can't reuse it, right? So directives you can't really reuse by using a spreadable, using a spread props. You have to write them manually. So again, you are thinking, can I have a way that dynamically change between foo and bar? Well, you're watching the right video to learn the right stuff. As the title shows, this is called Svelte component. So we are going to use Svelte component to solve this. So how does that work? Well, Svelte component over here Svelte component is a special elements in Svelte. So usually special elements starts with a Svelte and a colon, right? So these are not normal elements, they are special elements in Svelte. Okay, so Svelte component must have a this attribute. So what this attribute though is that whatever you pass in should be a component. So for example, based on a certain scenario, I want full or I want a bar, I can say, okay, I can have a ternary over here and say I want full based on this scenario and I want bar for this scenario. Okay, so I can now come over here and copy all the rest to this special elements, and this will, I can replace whatever I've written back there with this. Alright, so Svelte component, this takes in the component that I want, and then I can pass in however many props that they are sharing, right? You can have some extra ones that just for full and not for bar. If bar does not take it, it's okay. You can have more than you need for one of them, right? But I think it's okay. So here you use this, and now let's see, does it still works? If I change to 200, now you see full, and I switch it back to 0, now you see bar. And all the binding still works, right? So if, for example, if I change it to 200 and come over here and I change it 200 to 300, 200, and I'm going to type something, all the binding still works. You can just treat this as a component that is being created with full or with bar based on this condition over here, and all the directives, different kind of directives, bindings on event listeners, and as well as props, spread props, all kind of props. They are all works. All of them will be passed to full or bar. So here you go. You have a Svelte component that allows you to quickly switch between different components, and while they can take in the same props. Right. So sometimes you don't write it this way, where you don't kind of have these expressions over here. Maybe sometimes you may want to say come over here and declare a reactive declared variable called component and do it this way. It's fine as well. This works as well, right? If you switch between, it still works. And sometimes for some reason, right, say for example, maybe value is greater than 200, then you actually don't want to show something. You use a null or undefined over here. Let's see, I think undefined works as well. So in this case, when you hit 400, you actually not render anything, right? I think null works as well. Let me try, I can't remember. Yeah, null works as well. So null or undefined, as long as the component is null or undefined, that you pass it over here for the this. So if this is now undefined, you don't see anything, right? There's no error. There's no error where the component is undefined and you can't create it, right? Svelte will just remove it. So if you are rendering if you throw nothing here, then you don't see a component. And if you go back, turn it back to 50, then you start see your component based on this condition. So what components you're giving will see the component you're getting out over here. So that's all for Svelte component. Hope to see more ideas or projects or things that you want to do, and you realize that, hey, I can do this with Svelte component. Comment your REPL down the comments of this video. So I'm gonna look through all of them. Okay, so if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you have anything you like, share this video. And as always, remember to subscribe to my channel so that you get notified when the next one is out. So see ya. Bye bye.